Welcome back for another game break, everybody. So the Nintendo 64, that most magical of systems and one of the most important consoles of all time. I don't think that can even be argued at this point. And going from the 16-bit graphic era of the 4th generation to the 64-bit graphical era of the 5th generation, there hasn't been a leap forward in graphics like that since that has impacted me in the way the Nintendo 64 did. I can still remember, and this is gonna date me really badly, my buddy in elementary rented one from Blockbuster Video, and he had a bunch of us come over to his house and play. And I remember showing up to his house, going downstairs, and he's just starting Super Mario 64. And I just remember being in awe, being stupefied, just not being able to even comprehend what I was looking at when I saw Mario in 3D for the first time. And this was just in front of the castle when you first start the game, running around, doing some swimming, climbing trees. I could barely comprehend what I was watching. And with the 64, I never even got it at launch. It was a couple years down the road. I remember there was an after-school program up here in Canada called YTV, where they'd have anime and Power Rangers and stuff like that. And I remember them having contests for it and me calling in and trying to win and not being able to get one. But I remember, and I still remember this quite vividly, I remember coming home from school one day, and I hadn't really been begging or asking for a Nintendo 64. I don't think really that much, maybe for Christmas, but money was really tight. And I remember just asking my mom after school, can I get a Nintendo 64? Like, I just really like one. And she's like, sure. So we went to Blockbuster. She grabbed one for me, and I still remember that to this day, and it's such a good memory. And I know she didn't have an absolute ton of money, and it was a fairly expensive console at the time, so I just really appreciate that she did that for me, because she knew how important it was. And I remember we're driving home, and I have the console in the back seat, and we're driving by, and we happen to drive by my friend who has one. I remember holding the console up in the window, being like, I got one, I finally got one, and just pointing at it and being so damn happy. And the Nintendo 64, more than any other console, it's the console I equate to playing games with friends. Yes, I play games with friends now, and I have back in the day, like World of Warcraft and StarCraft and other online games like that. But the Nintendo 64 is that console I played with friends in the same room. Just in a myriad different amount of games too. And that's why the console is so important to me. It's just all those fond, great, fun memories of playing games with friends and being able to laugh and react to everything in real time. So now let's get to it. This is a top 10 list of my favorite, and in my opinion, the best Nintendo 64 games. Let's get to it. So you all actually get a 2-for-1 deal for number 10, because when it came to deciding number 10, there were two games that I was really struggling with, and I decided I can't bear the thought of leaving either of these out of this top 10 list. Yes, I could have made it a top 11 list, but top 10 just sounds better. So here's the first game at number 10. Wave Race 64. If you knew my gaming tastes at all, you would be shocked and amazed to see a racing game aside from Mario Kart on any of my top 10 lists. And that is just a testament to the power of the Nintendo 64. Everything old was new again. RPGs seems new, racing games, platformers, first-person shooters, you name it. Everything was being seen in a new light all of a sudden. And the Nintendo 64 got me trying genres and types of games that I never would have attempted before. And all that's a big aside from the fact Wave Race 64 was just a genuinely good game. The controls were really tight, the racing was fun, I loved all the tropical environments, the water for its time looked incredible. You could find shortcuts and tracks, and you could perform sick looking jumps, backflips, side to side rolls, just to make yourself look like a badass. So Wave Race 64, it was an incredible experience, had a lot of fun with it. And even though it didn't have the 4-player co-op that Mario Kart had, it still had 2 players. And even without multiplayer, it was one of those racing games that I played a ton by myself, and I had an absolute blast doing so. Gambare, so gambare, a chi la Mystical Ninja starring Goemon. This is a flawed gem, probably one of the more flawed games on this list, but it's a gem nonetheless, and I'm sure people would argue with me it might not be worthy of being on here, but I would just say I don't care. I love the Mystical Ninja franchise, I loved the game for the Super Nintendo, and Mystical Ninja starring Goemon seems like a very large leap forward. Yes, a lot of titles did on the Nintendo 64. But for Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, we all of a sudden had two brand new characters in the form of Yae and Sasuke. They both looked really cool. They had bladed weapons which could cut enemies in half, which I thought was really awesome. And then all of a sudden we had these badass mech battles too. So I just remember thinking at the time, wow, they really stepped up their game for Mystical Ninja games. But the reason for that is we missed a bunch of titles in North America. At least 2 games didn't make it over here. So they had been refining the formula for a while. And then all of a sudden North America got a game that came at least a couple of games later. And there was also a lot of other things to love about Mystical Ninja starring Goemon too. I love the environments. I love how it reminded me of Ocarina of Time, and I could fully traverse through the world. I could go into shops and buy items and explore and find secrets. And just like the Goemon games of the Super Nintendo, I love the art style. I love these characters. I love how zany the titles could be, their sense of humor. And I loved just kind of like the over-the-top silly story that goes with it. And at the same time, it still keeps that platforming action of the original titles. So while it is a bit flawed and it can be a bit janky at times, it's a title I love with all my heart nonetheless. Mario Party. So this could easily be Mario Party 1, 2, or 3. They all had their fair share of great mini games and not so great mini games. But what they all had in common was just the countless hours of fun it provided to me and my friends. Mario Party was the perfect game to just have your buddies come over, sit down, and play for hours on end. Because the mini games were so simple and so easy to pick up, you could all be relatively at the same skill level. So it just made for great competitive play. And I loved the different boards you could play on. And I loved it when we would encounter Bowser and me and my friends would be severely punished and we would just laugh at each other. And just playing the mini games, I just remember us laughing and crying and making fun of each other and just all around having a great time. And that's why these games are so important, just for the fond memories I have of my youth playing with my friends, and I'm still friends with quite a few of these people to this day. And we would have so much fun and be so competitive in these games that we would play till the wee hours of the morning and we'd pass out where we lay playing. And then I'd remember we'd wake up and my mom would make us all breakfast and it would just be an all-around epic weekend. So Mario Party, you made this list because, like very few games before you or since, you have given me some of my most fondest, heartwarming, heartfelt moments of my youth and just the good times and the camaraderie I had with genuine friends.
Welcome to Mario Kart.
Mario Kart 64. This is another title on the list, very much like Mario Party, where it's a defining game of my youth, particularly when it came to playing games with friends. Because you had the sweet-ass 4-player co-op. You and 3 of your closest friends could race through courses, playing against computers as well, just blasting each other, having absolute mayhem and a good time. And then there was also the battle mode as well, where you would all face off, racing through a course closed off and just blasting each other, and you all had your 3 balloons. And yes, some of you would get salty, but generally it was fairly positive, competitive play and just had a lot of good memories. And then for the game itself, it had great courses. The characters looked great. Mario and all the other Nintendo mascots were there. Donkey Kong, Princess Peach, Luigi, Yoshi. And the courses themselves were a lot of fun to traverse through, and they all looked so unique, and there was good music as well. And there's a reason why Mario Kart games are, by and large, usually some of the top-selling titles, if not the top-selling title for a Nintendo console, because anyone can pick them up. They're a lot of fun to play and they provide countless hours of fun. And even if you drop it, you can still come back to it months or years later, pick up right where you left off and still have a blast. Goldeneye. So we have a video game based off a movie, which I don't think this has happened since the video game totally eclipsed the damn movie. I saw the movie years after playing the game, and It is a genre-defining masterpiece. Goldeneye, I think, aside from Doom, was one of the only first-person shooters I'd ever really played up until that point. And it was freaking incredible. I got it simply because of word of mouth. The single-player campaign was awesome. It was a lot of fun with varied levels. I can still remember running over people with the tank and hearing them crunch. And the story of the game's development alone and how it came to be is an incredible read and is as entertaining as the game itself. And Goldeneye was one of those few titles I got every single cheat in that game, pulling off some truly incredible feats to do so, spending hours and hours and hours in a single level, all in order to unlock invincibility, along with infinite ammo and the myriad other cheats that the game provided. And I remember just going through the game after having played it multiple times, just finding new, different ways to kill the enemies in the single player campaign, planting mines everywhere and watching them explode and enemies go flying across the screen. I just had a lot of fun with Goldeneye, whether it was single player or once again, playing hour upon hour upon hour with friends, looking at each other's screen to see where everyone else was at any given time, playing with Moonraker lasers or rockets, or just with the cool golden gun. And there were also a ton of nods to the older Bond movies in this game too. Goldeneye, a genre-defining masterpiece, and it belongs on any top 10 list of the Nintendo 64. Super Smash Bros., the birth of a fighting game icon, the beginning of what would become the modern day celebration of gaming. And that is very much what Super Smash Bros. Has turned into, and I think it's great. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, there had never been a fighting game like it. You could have 4 people fighting at once, doing everything you could to just absolutely blast each other off the stage. And plus you would get myriad amounts of different types of items to use, like guns and laser swords and Pokemon and so on and so forth. There had been nothing like it until that moment. And once again, like so many of the other games on this list, just so many fond memories of playing with friends. And I remember getting so good at one point, because I think I was playing it a little bit more than my buddies, I would be fighting my friends 2-on-1. In certain instances, but by and large, it did get pretty even, and it just led to a lot of good times and once again, fond memories. And it didn't hurt either that it just had so many iconic Nintendo characters in it. There was something for everybody in the roster. Everyone played very differently from one another. I used Link personally, but my friends would either use Pikachu or Kirby. Generally, none of us were playing as the same character, so there was always variety to the matches. But no, Super Smash Bros., it's now synonymous with Nintendo, and it is arguably, well, not arguably, it is one of their most iconic franchises. And it all started with Mario kicking Yoshi. Ogre Battle 64. Ogre Battle is an example of me being biased against a game for one particular reason and pretty much eating my hat down the road. I loved Ogre Battle for the PlayStation and for the Super Nintendo. And I should have been all over this title immediately because it's a tactical role-playing game, one of my absolute most favorite genres. It has a politically driven narrative in a fantasy setting, which is my bread and butter, but I couldn't get over the art style, the graphical style for the game. It just wasn't clicking for me. And it was years after the Nintendo 64 launched before I started playing it. I think we were into the goddamn Wii era before I finally played Ogre Battle 64. And once again, just ate my hat, could have slapped myself in the face for being so dumb. The story was awesome. And once again, just like the other Ogre Battle titles, it is a fantasy playland in terms of the units you can have, the different mix-ups in terms of your unit types, where you could have fighting together. You could have knights fighting with dragons and Amazons fighting with mages, and so on and so forth. There was a ridiculous amount of variety when it came to constructing your army. And I love the Ogre Battle series for that. So I'm really glad I got over that visual hang up. And once I started playing the game and getting into it, the visual style started to grow on me and I started to appreciate it more and more. I still didn't like it as much as the PlayStation version or the Super Nintendo version, visually speaking, but I did get around to it and I'm really glad I got over that. And unfortunately, it's not the last example on this list of me being biased against a game before trying it for myself and learning to love it. But having said that, Ogre Battle, even though it took me a long time to get to it, it had that sweet strategic gameplay. And Ogre Battle 64, just like the rest of the Ogre Battle series, it is a series of games that I will go back to and play for many years to come. Star Fox 64. This was my first 3D rail shooter, and I still think it's my favorite one to this day. Plus, it came with this sick rumble pack, the first time you got that feel of vibration in a controller, and it was game-changing. There was nothing like it at the time once again. Just so many firsts for the Nintendo 64. And Star Fox, while you did have pretty much the corridor mode as you go through levels, they were very linear. They were always fun and dynamic. And there were always different enemy types in the levels. And in addition to the army, you also had some tank levels on the ground, which were also very fun. And then with the all range mode, there was the Katina level, my favorite level in the game, and it was such an ode to Independence Day.
Welcome to Earth.
You had to take out the alien craft before it destroyed the base. And you're in there with Peppy and Slippy and Falco, and you have all these other troops in the air, and there's just a huge dogfight going on. It was just awesome. And as you're making your way to the final level, Venom and the boss, there are different ways that you can go through the system, and there are different paths and different levels you can go to. And all the levels were unique and super fun to traverse through. And depending on how you did, you might go to one planet or the other, depending on how you finish the level. And I always remember I had a guide for the game, and the person who wrote the guide said, this was our high score in the title. Can you beat it? And I beat it. I remember beating the high score in the official Star Fox guide. Just so many hours of fun with this title, and it had a great multiplayer mode as well, just like a lot of other Nintendo 64 titles. And plus, if you got far enough, you could unlock it where you are on the ground, just as Fox, Falco, Slippy, or Peppy, and you have a bazooka, and you're so tiny it could be hard for the R-Wings or the tanks to find you, but if they ever hit you with a bomb, you are absolutely toast. But Star Fox, firing on all cylinders, absolutely iconic game, arguably the best title in the entire Star Fox franchise, I would say. And to this day, nothing but fond memories for me for it. Paper Mario, the other game on this list that I was initially biased towards because of how it looked. And I feel like a lot of people probably shared my sentiment at the time because a lot of us wanted another Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. And it's funny because this game was even secretly titled when it was still in production as Super Mario RPG 2. So when this game came out, I was a little hung up on the fact that it didn't look anything like one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. But eventually I got over myself, gave it a try, and holy crap, was it a good experience. The RPG battles, while they were quite different, were still a lot of fun. It had some of the best Mario companions ever, characters ever, to come out of this series, particularly the first two games. It had a wicked sense of humor. It was an absolute joy to traverse through the different environments. And the story, while a little bit goofy and zany, was still highly entertaining, and the paper mechanic or the paper aesthetic for the title really worked well. Super Mario RPG, an absolute must-play experience for any RPG lover, and it is one of the Nintendo 64's best games.
It's me, Mario! Hello!
Super Mario 64. Like I said in the intro to this video, I was in awe of this game. Walking into that room and seeing it for the first time at my friend's house, I've never been utterly stupefied on the spot by a game ever. Or even since then, being able to run around in full 3D environments that all had a unique aesthetic to offer. Every world you could jump into through those paintings offered something brand new. The music was incredible. particularly when you got to fly around. Yes, you got to fly as Mario in this game. The music track that accompanied that was incredible. When you got to swim in some of the levels, the track that played during that is amazing as well. Even going down goddamn slides had good music. This game was on fire when it came to the score. And every level had something new to offer, mechanically speaking, it seemed as well, and I can still remember saving baby penguins in the snow. And even before you started the game, you could play with Mario's face in 3D. I spent hours just playing with his damn face, pulling it apart, rotating it around, and pulling it in different ways. Super Mario 64 was magical. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And just like every other game on this list, I could make a separate video for each one, and I could talk about each game for minutes on end, and this game is no exception. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time redefined the action-adventure genre, and it gave us an experience that we didn't even know games were capable of providing. We got to travel through time as young Link to adult Link and back again, affecting the world in myriad different ways. The game provided us with a ton of different environments to explore, colorful, interesting characters to meet, and a story that by the time it was over, I couldn't let it go, and I immediately had to go back and play the game again. And this was all accompanied by, as always, a fantastic Zelda soundtrack. And the gameplay was refined and presented in such a way that it was an incredible joy to experience. The 3D worked very well, the boss fights were fun, even fighting just random enemies was enjoyable, the puzzle mechanics were there, they were complicated but not too complicated, and if you spent any amount of time you could usually figure it out. The water temple being maybe a bit of an exception, it got pretty confusing in there at times. And all of Link's classic items worked very well in 3D. Zelda, like Mario, is just a perfect example of how to transition from 2D gameplay to 3D gameplay. It is one of the most iconic titles of all time. It always will be. It's a very important game for Nintendo, and it has shaped the course for 3D Zelda games for decades. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time deserves to be number one, but there are so many good games on the Nintendo 64, it could have just as easily been something else. So as always, thank you for joining me for this game break. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane as much as I did, and I'll see you next time, guys.